And today's the day for the bid walkthrough. The good news is we've already set up the client. They have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen on this day. They're going to walk the property, they're going to talk to their contractor. Contractor's going to throw measuring tape around and let them know what their project is worth. But a couple of things that we'd like you to be able to do here is basically just be your best. This is when we get out of your way. This is business as usual. This is when you get to shine. So you're going to meet with the client on site. You're already going to have a basic scope of work. You're already going to have pictures, videos, photos, or some head start. So when you walk into this property, you're already going to have a pretty good idea of what they're going to ask for you. One thing to note, and we talked about this before, when we talk about having a budget, take it with a grain of salt. Most clients want what they want, and 99% of clients that we've had in the past go over their budget. So, do we want to keep it in mind? Certainly, but we want to take it with a grain of salt and get them what they want. We want to make sure we put the whole scope of work together, put the whole bid together, and they can always work their way backwards, but it's much, much more difficult to build a small bid and then add a lot to it. So when you're walking around with the client, talk to them about what they can do, what they can't do. Can that wall be removed? Can this wall be removed? Would it be more expensive to do this version or this version? How hard would it be to put a full bath here instead of a half bath? This is where you just get to be yourself. This is where you get to be a contractor and do what you do best. One thing that we do ask you to do as you're leaving the property or as you're walking through, set expectations. You may already be very good at this, but in case that you're not, we want you to set expectations and let the clients know what's realistic. Next on the list is for you to get that bid put together. How long is it going to take? Are they just doing a simple garage addition and you need a lumber package? You need to know what the shingles are going to cost and you can turn it around in a couple days? Or are they taking this thing down to the studs and you're starting over and it's going to be 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks before we get this bid back? Whatever it is, shoot long and just tell them up front what it's going to look like. This will keep them from giving us a call and trying to figure out where their bid is and giving you a call and trying to figure out what's taking so long. So we really, really, really would like to have your bids back within a week if possible, depending on the size of the job. But we know that if it's a big giant reno and it's going to take a couple weeks, then that's just what it's going to take. So during your big walkthrough, just think, be yourself, help the client out. This is business as usual. We'd like you guys to be, as expert and punctual as possible. Again, communicate and speed. Communicate and speed are the two most important things here. So you've walked the property with the client, and now it's time to go back and start putting together your first bid. We need to talk about two different scenarios here. The first one, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but just to reiterate, if your client is purchasing a new home, they have some kind of deadline, whether it be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks if we're lucky, to get your bid back and get to the appraisal. Not only do they have to get your bid back, but they've got to get through a couple different iterations. They got to make sure that the lender is going to accept your bid. There's a number of different things we need to do. So if it's a new home purchase, we've got to move quick. This again comes back to setting expectations. If it's a relatively small job that you're bidding, maybe it just takes a couple days to get it back. If it's a large job, hopefully it takes at 2 weeks tops to get a bid back to our clients. If we can't get them back quickly, then that gives the opportunity to the sellers to potentially decline their offer and walk away. And then everybody's wasted their time. You went to the house, you start working on their bid for nothing, and nobody's got anything to show for it, and we start over. So if they're purchasing a new home, we've got to be quick. We will talk about the bid in more detail a little bit later. The client needs to see it a specific way, the appraiser needs to see it a specific way, and there's a very specific way that draft needs to be put together that we'll cover in a different module. If it's a reno refinance or it's a cash buyer, and I should just write that here, we have a little bit more time. There's no schedule, there's no timer. We're not on the wire to get this thing done as fast as possible. However, at Makeover Renovations, we want to be able to tell our customers that their bids are going to be fast and prompt and on time. So again, if it's a relatively small project and we can get that thing turned around in a couple days, we will ooh and ah a bunch of clients. If it's a larger project and it takes a couple of weeks and some drawings, then that's just what it takes. When you have your bid put together, we ask that you send it directly to your client and just CC us on it at renovations@makeover-homes.com. This way we know that the client got it. You just let us know that they received the bid, attach the bid along with it, and then everybody's on the same page. This also allows us to move you along in the next pipeline of our step. That way we know exactly where this job is. And again, it gets back to that way we don't bug you, the client doesn't bug us, and everybody's on the same page. You shot the first bid off to the client, and now the waiting game begins. The clients are going to take a couple days to review your bid. Make sure it's got everything that you guys talked about. Make sure it's got everything that the lender's going to require. And make sure that the budget is at least close enough to what they'd like to be paying. As you know, this may take a couple rounds, especially if they're going to be doing any kinds of major edits. If they're going to be upgrading a half bath to a full bath, if they're going to be going with countertops that are quartz as opposed to laminate, any kind of bigger edits that may take a day or two for you to get back to them, this process is going to be some back and forths. They're going to see some new numbers, they're going to see some old numbers, and they're going to eventually work it around with you to make sure that the bid is right. This bid's got to include everything, okay? It's got to include everything. It's got to fit their budget, because once we send it off to the lender, we can't go asking for more money. There's a little bit of room from a contingency standpoint that we'll talk about later in case unforeseens pop up, but for the most part, if it's not in our original scope of work when we send it to the lender, we will not be able to add it in later. So we want to make sure that that bid looks great. Once you and the client have agreed upon a bid, you're going to have them sign it, and once you have the signed copy, you're going to email that to the client and CC us on it once again. Our email, renovations@makeover-homes.com. You should have this saved by now, but just to reiterate, by sending it to them and sending it to us, we know what's going on. We'll be able to move you to the next stage. And on top of that, we're going to send it to the lender, the HUD consultant, and anybody else who might need it. So, again, once you have your final signed bid that the clients have agreed upon, you're going to email it to the client, email it to us, and we'll send it out to everybody else.